Today I'm gonna tell you about the famous kidnapping case of 5 children of Sodder family. How these 5 children were kidnapped from their own home. Could the Sicilian Mafia have been involved in the mysterious disappearance of the Sodder children, or was it something even more sinister? Stick around to uncover the details of this unsolved mystery that has baffled investigators for decades. So let's begin. On Christmas Eve, 1945, the Sodder family home in Fayetteville, West Virginia, was filled with the warmth and joy of the holiday season. George and Jenny Sodder, along with 9 of their 10 children, were celebrating the festive occasion. The family had decorated the house, and the children were excitedly anticipating Christmas morning. As the night progressed, the family began to settle down. Around 10 p.m., Jenny allowed the younger children to stay up a bit later to play with some new toys that their older sister, Marion, had brought home as a surprise. Eventually, Jenny and George went to bed, leaving the children to enjoy their evening. At around 12:30 a.m., the phone rang, waking Jenny. She answered it and spoke to a woman whose voice she didn't recognize, asking for someone Jenny didn't know. Jenny later recalled that the woman had an odd laugh and the sound of clinking glasses in the background. After hanging up, Jenny noticed that the lights were still on and the curtains were not drawn, which was unusual. She found Marion asleep on the couch and assumed the other children had gone to bed in the attic. Jenny returned to bed but was soon awakened again by a loud bang on the roof, followed by a rolling noise. She drifted back to sleep, only to be awakened once more around 1 a.m. by the smell of smoke. She quickly woke George, and they discovered that the house was on fire, originating from the fuse box and telephone line. George and Jenny managed to escape the burning house with 4 of their children, Sylvia, Marion, John, and George Jr. However, 5 of their children, Maurice was 14 years old, Martha was 12, Louis was 9, Jenny was 8, and Betty was just 5 years old, were still inside. George desperately tried to save them. He broke a window to re-enter the house, injuring himself in the process. However, the smoke and flames were too intense, and he couldn't see anything. In a frantic attempt to rescue his children, George tried to use a ladder to reach the upstairs windows, but the ladder was mysteriously missing. He then tried to use his coal trucks to climb up, but neither of them would start, despite working perfectly the day before. Marion ran to a neighbor's house to call the fire department, but the operator did not respond. Another neighbor drove into town to find the fire chief, but by the time the fire department arrived, it was too late. The house had been reduced to ashes. Surprisingly, no remains of the 5 children were found in the rubble. The official explanation was that the fire had been hot enough to completely incinerate their bodies, but the Sodders were skeptical. They pointed to several strange occurrences before and during the fire. For instance, a stranger had visited the house a few months earlier, warning George that his house would go up in smoke due to his outspoken criticism of Mussolini and the fascist government in Italy. Additionally, a woman claimed to have seen the missing children in a car driving away from the burning house. Adding to the mystery, a witness came forward years later, claiming to have seen a group of children resembling the Sodder kids in a photograph taken at a hotel in New York City. The photograph, however, was never found again. Over the years, the Sodder family became convinced that their children had been kidnapped. They put up a billboard along Route 16 with pictures of the 5 children, offering a reward for information. They also received a photograph in the 1960s that they believed showed an adult Louis. Despite these efforts, the mystery remained unsolved. Theories about what happened to the Sodder children range from kidnapping by the Sicilian Mafia to a tragic accident. However, no conclusive evidence has ever been found. The case remains one of the most enduring and heartbreaking unsolved mysteries in American history. In the years following the fire, the Sodder family continued to search for answers. They hired private investigators and even wrote to the FBI, asking for help. Edgar Hoover, the FBI director at the time, responded that the case appeared to be a local matter and declined to assist. The family also received numerous tips and sightings of the children, but none of them led to any concrete evidence. One of the most intriguing pieces of evidence came in 1968 when Jenny received a letter with no return address, postmarked from Kentucky. Inside was a photograph of a young man who resembled their son Louis. On the back of the photo were the words, "Louis Sodder. I love brother Frankie. Ill boys. A 90132 or 35. The Sodders hired another private investigator to follow up on the lead, but he disappeared and was never heard from again. Despite the lack of answers, the Sodder family never gave up hope. George Sodder passed away in 1969, and Jenny in 1989, both without ever knowing what happened to their children. The remaining Sodder children and their descendants have continued to seek the truth, but the mystery remains unsolved to this day. The disappearance of the Sodder children is a haunting reminder of the pain and uncertainty that unsolved mysteries can bring. It is a story of a family's relentless search for answers and the enduring hope that one day, the truth will be revealed.